Oh, sorry.
I am thankful to Sheetalnath Conversations
Oh, no,
for
not
having
yet.
invited me.
Not yet. Not yet. Uh, Sorry, I mean, I got this all mixed up. I'll just begin with Iqbal's one couplet. ताहे जिंदगी से नहीं ये फजाएं, ताहे जिंदगी से नहीं ये फजाएं, यहाँ सैकड़ों कारवां और भी है, सितारों से आगे जहां और भी है, अभी
अभी
इश्क
इश्क के इम्तिहान और
इम्तिहान और भी है, अभी इश्क के इम्तिहान और भी है. Good evening and welcome to the Sheetalath Conversations. Yet another Sunday evening 7 p.m. IST show. At 62nd milestone, I am again welcoming uh, all the wonderful followers, admirers, supporters, dedicated spectators of Sheetalath Conversation. And it gives me great, immense joy and pleasure that we have traveled around 60, milestones, and we are now again glittering like a great beckoning, you know, lighthouse on our 62nd, this 60-second stage. So once again, uh, my heartiest greetings to all for tuning into today's program. And as I said, Shitalath conversation, as the name implies, it means the serene, the subtle, the eloquent conversation, interaction, uh, you know, this dialogue, and a kind of an heart-to-heart communication. It has been a wonderful time. I mean, we have done almost 62 shows here, and we can see that all these shows depict very wide range of topics, wide range of areas that this canvas of Kashmir, the crown and cradle of Indian civilization, possesses in its history, in its calligraphy. We can just see and amble around and crisscross around and observe that this is so. The I remember one of the great novels by one of the great Alex Huxley. I mean, it is about the roots, legacy of
yes,
American family. It's a wonderful
yes,
novel. It's about the roots, the connection of roots, how roots have an important role to play in the development of our mental structure, our cognitive apparatus, our going on to different dimensions, our development, social, cognitive, physical, and all round. So after that, after reading this novel, you will definitely come to know how roads are important. And the one problem with the challenge with nowadays we find around, we encounter around, is that people, by and large, our youngsters, and even the middle-aged people, they are disconnecting with their roots. That's why there is a agony, there's a frustration, and there's a disharmony, despite of best possible material wealth they have around. I think in Shitala's conversation, somewhere down the line, we have been trying to traverse through this happening, this phenomenon, which is no more good, which is phenomenon of the present day contemporary world, to take them back to the roots, the legacy, the greatness of the times we all belong to. So that's how it is. And I remember, we have almost touched the mountains. We have just dipped our hands in the salubrious climate of the lakes, frozen lakes. We have gone to the shrines. We have gone to the many streets, hamlets, castles, monarchs. We talked about the monarchs. We talked about the traditions. We talked about the culture. We talked about the bonhomie. We talked about the phases. We have talked about the ancient sciences. So this is a very vast canvas, and by the way, most of the time, our people, they talk about the bygone centuries lying at our backyards, because most of our visitors, they are born into the 20th century, so they talk about those times in Kashmir. So it's a kind of a revitalization, revival, renaissance kind of a thing which is happening. So I feel very proud at this moment, and it is across the globe. This program has been welcomed so much, liked so much. I because of its very distinctive style. It's not a typical that radio or the broadcasting style that you are presenting a person and his life, and it's all about the totality, the 360 degree around awareness about our roots, and through many dimensions, through many ways, through many contours. So that's so wonderful. I would like to say one more thing before I begin. There's a beautiful couplet of Ghalib I would like to recite here. नुक्तची है गमे दिल, नुक्तची है गमे दिल, उसको सुनाए न बने, क्या बने बात जहां, बात बनाए न बने. With that beautiful couplet, I would like to say today we are going to talk about one of the great Indian language and its literature, one of the wonderful, with the enormous depth, enormous body of literary work in it, and which has a wonderful flow and has grown over the years. From the times it was practiced as a necessitated thing during the 14th century in the courts, because our rulers were they were all from outside. They were mostly they were the Turks, or they were the Mongols, or they were the Afghans, and they used this language to collaborate between the people and the administration and the bureaucracy and the rest of the world. And since then, this language has got a very great change, and you can see. I mean, if we amble around and peek through this history of the Urdu, we can just find out that from the time of when this was in the Brahmani Sultanate. Brahmani Sultanate wanted to distinguish itself from the Delhi Sultanate. What they did, they created Urdu as their court language, because in Delhi, yet the Persian was practiced as the court language. And then you all know about Ali Shah, Qutb Ali Shah of Golconda, Kuli Qutb Shah of Golconda, and who was the monarch of Golconda and who was himself into the literature. And he created this particular language, which was nothing but the Urdu, known as Dakkani. It had an influence of Maharashtra and Gujarati, and it was known to be called to be as Dakkani. In 19th century, you can see the literary this expositions from Delhi Darbar. It went to the Lucknow and Hyderabad and Patna, because most of the luminaries, they went into these courts and these places, and this monarchies, these poses, their poetries, they were very much welcome. I remember, we all know about Zauq, all know about Bahadur Shah Zafar, we know all about Ghalib. That was a time when the Mughal dynasty, Mughal monarchy was in decline, and English were making fresh roads into the country, and something great, something different was coming up. But yet, one particular setup was going off. But then again, we had these wonderful, glittering poets, glittering literatures like Ghalib, like Zauq, like Bahadur Shah Zafar, and many others who wrote wonderful masnavis, who wrote wonderful nazm, ghazals, and who contributed in literature, who contributed in the autobiographies in many wonderful ways. Who cannot relish those wonderful times, or those wonderful earmark, those couplets which have flown into the present millennia, present time, present century, present day, present month, and they are as fresh as they were written a century before, or 1.5 centuries before. So that's how it is, and that's how the journey of evolution goes, and evolution and devolution and all these things, they work together. And then when the stagnation comes, then again the flow comes, and when the flow comes, after day there is a night, after night there is a day. But literature develops on its own pace and own style. That's how what has happened to the Urdu. And we can talk about many things about Urdu, and then the time of the progressive movement in the 19th century, and then later on you can talk about the modern Urdu literature, postmodern Urdu literature. Those are all academic things. We can go on and on those subjects. But certainly in the dramaturgy, if we talk about the dramaturgy, it was on the courts of that Wajid Ali Shah, the first dramatic happenings happened. They created certain scenarios which were dramatic, and they were this the great the great proses and good poetries were there part of the. It was the kind of a Parsi theater. It collaborated with the Persians, the business Persian community of the Bombay and other places, and then they created an entire this mosaic of the wonderful theater, which was known as the Parsi theater. And Parsi has its roots in the Sanskrit theater, the Rangpatti, all the musicology and everything comes. And I mean, it started from. It was a great synthesis between the you know, as they say that Sanskrit, the Hindi was created by Sanskrit, and you know, Urdu came from the Parakrat, the offshoot of Sanskrit, and then it was the Arabo-Persian vocab which further decorated it and made it a wonderful thing. Today we have with us a very eminent, well-known personality of the subcontinent, literature of Urdu, especially the short story, eminent personality, who was the chief postmaster general and who had held the very, very eminent positions across, and he was known as the great reformist across the places he served in different departments and different situations of the public life, even including the army. His literature is very well known in the Indian subcontinent. His short stories are very well known. His articles are something to be relished about. His critical analysis and critical articles are known. He's also well traveled and well read, and he has been speaking on the great seminars, eloquent this seminars about literature, especially about the Urdu literature. So his name is Deepak Budki ji. Deepak Budki ji is a very wonderful personality. I had a conversation with him since last few days. We are having conversation on telephone, and I feel that you will relish today the time with Deepak Budki ji, because you know Deepak Budki ji will take you along, catapult you along, not only to Kashmir, not only tell you about something about himself, his illustrious career, and you know then his literature contribution in the literature, but his main emphasis will be about post-partition journey of Urdu literature. We have the great persons like Sahir Ludhianvi, Sahadat Hasan Manto, Ismat Chugtai, Munshi Premchand, and Faz Ahmad Faz, Iqbal. List is endless. So it's a very, very beautiful, eloquent subject, and we have a very right man here. So with great reverence and affection, let's welcome to the studio Deepak Budki ji. Deepak ji,
Thank you.
Welcome to the 62nd Sheetalnath Conversations show.
Thank you, Mr. Jugal Koul Saab. And I also thank the Sheetalnath Conversations for having invited me for this program. It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Please, you were saying something.
I finished, as you said, to be concise, and all that I said was, it is a great privilege to be here, so that I can interact with you and at least express myself on the video.
Thank you very much. It's so nice of you. We are so pleased to have you with us. It's an honor, and I certainly know that this whole interaction, maybe 1 hour, one or some minutes long, it could be very catchy one, and certainly we are very sure that this certainly means a lot of information, a lot of delight of the Urdu lovers and the people who are the constant spectators of Sheetalnath Conversations. To begin with, as the structure of the program is that we take everyone to Kashmir, and let's go and through your binocular visit your childhood lanes, then your growing up years in Kashmir, institutions you studied, your family environment, the houses you lived, the water bodies around, the traditions, the festivals, the culture, the bonhomie, the interaction, and the travels in Kashmir and other aspects, the inspirations you had in college, in institutions. Let's talk about Kashmir from your point of view, through your binocular. गमे दुनिया भी गमे यार में शामिल कर लो, गमे दुनिया भी गमे यार में शामिल कर लो, नशा बढ़ता है शराबे जो शराबों से मिले. Please welcome. Please elucidate.
बहुत खूब आपने बहुत अच्छा शेर कहा है. When I talk of Kashmir, it's all nostalgic because now it's long since I have left it. But my heart remains there, my soul remains there. I have
Yes.
been basically born in a place which was called Wazapur basically, but we used to write in our certificate register, we used to write it Kralting. But basically, the area was called as a Wazapur. And as you know very well what Waza means a cook, and
Cook.
Pur means a place. So Kashmiri Muslim जो cooks थे, those cooks, they used to all stay around us in our mola. In fact, you will be surprised that when in the evening when they used to all come at 1 o'clock or so, I was a very I mean, I used to stay late up to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock to study and all that. And when they all used to come to that place, can you believe they used to bring all those utensils and carry them to their home because they carry their utensils from their self. They are not being provided by the hosts. They would carry them, and can you imagine the fragrance of those whatever was left in that or whatever was on their clothes and all that? That whole thing would make the whole mola so fragrant that I used to go to sleep as if I had eaten the whole vazawan that very day. That was how it was. And in fact, Kashmir, as I told you, as puts me to a lot of nostalgia. We had it was Dogras who had done a great job in getting Kashmiri Muslims educated. Can you imagine the concept of forcing compulsory education for masses was brought in by Maharaja Pratap Singh. And
Yes.
I have studied in that Jabri school. It used to be called as a Jabri school. And
Jabri.
then I used to study
What does
there.
Jabri
Up
mean?
to,
What does Jabri mean? Jabri.
Jabri means forced, compulsive. When you
Compulsory.
compel somebody, when you compel somebody to do, like an army, you call drafting. When you force somebody to join army, you call it as drafting. Same way,
Okay.
it used to be Jabri school, taking children to school by force. Then those very days, like we used to live. We were just 20 houses of Kashmiri Pandits. Among the rest were all Muslims. And the surprisingly part was that the backside we used to have bakras, and in the front we used to have shares. I hope you know the differentiation between the shares and the bakras.
Yeah,
Shares were those
Shirkumal,
who had, yes, shares were those who had
NC, NC,
allegiance to Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah,
National Party,
and
NC.
Bakras were those who had allegiance to Molvi Yusuf Shah. And imagine, almost no week would pass when there was not a confrontation among the two. And surprisingly, when they used to stone each other, all the stones used to fall on our houses because we were almost like a fence between the Bakras and the shares. And I have
Oh,
written a story on also on that share bakra. It used to be funny thing, sort of a thing. Then we had in younger days. I used to study with Muslims. Never ever thought that we were different from Muslims, or Muslims
the
ever
same,
thought we
yeah.
were different. And you will be surprised. I reached this. I appeared for IS exams and all that. Is all because of a friend of mine, Nisar Hussain, who gave me shelter in Delhi, and I studied there for quite some time, for 2 3 months, and
Muslims people in
without.
Kashmir,
No,
people who
that
want.
what I'm just what I
Yes,
mean to
yes,
say
yes.
is that it was such a bonhomie. It was such a interaction among each other. We never thought he's a Muslim or he's a Hindu. And I'll tell you, we in Kashmir during my BSc, I remember we used to go and play cards. Of course, what cards? We never did some big stakes, but it was just small 10 naya paisa or 20 naya paisa. We used to play cards in a Muslim friend's house. His mother, his mother in the early morning, she used to make what you call as a double type of a roti. You call rumali roti type of a thing in Kashmiri. We make it small ones, rumali roti types.
Somali roti.
She used to make around 50, 60 of them and keep it in our front, and big samovar with salty. She used to prepare early in the morning, thinking as if these children are studying for some great IIT examination or whatever it is. And she knew they are playing cards. Her husband was the first one who had graduated from Kashmir, but he joined AG's office, and he served all his life in AG's office. He had no other ambitions. But we used to study there. This mother was so lovable, so affectionate. She used to keep all things for us and tell us, "Toi bhi aaram asmaz, toi main ye fikir gindu kya chukar." This is how she used to do it. This was the bonhomie. This was this. The second thing was we used to go even in the winters when it was -6, -7. Even it has at times reached -10 or -12. We used to go and play at places called Kalai, that is the Hari Parvat forts, this valley type of a thing, yeah. And then we used to go to place at Idga. We used to go and play cricket there, even in the winters, even when it was, our hands used to be almost cold, frigid and cold, but we still used to play cricket, and it was all fun. Muslims, Hindus, all of us were together. Eidgah. It used to be as if there was a mela happening whenever there was sun was shining and it was winter those days.
Wonderful. And
Then
yeah, please.
yes,
Please
yes,
continue.
please आप
You were talking
बताइए.
about some schools, institution. You talked about your institution. Your how did you study? Did people inspire you? How was the economy among the students?
My as I told you, I started with my Jabri school, which was very nearby. And this Jabri school, we had one teacher, one principal there, Muhammad Yasin. He almost helped me to write what you call in Urdu as pushkat, write copyright. Like, write nicely, write in a very nice way, both English as well as Urdu, the calligraphy as you call it. That
Calligraphy.
he used to teach us, and I studied Urdu right up to fifth, but it was not. I could not make a difference between hey and and. You really couldn't make a difference. But in fifth, my father had a concept. He somebody had told him that Hindi has got to be the future. Urdu has no future. So we shifted to Hindi from sixth to tenth. I shifted to Hindi. But being a science student, neither Hindi worked nor Urdu worked. I ultimately shifted to English, and medium of education was English. But what happened? What happened in we? I had my 8th to 10th. I had my studied. Sorry, 6th to 8th. I had my studies in Hamdania School, Nawakadal. But then my father shifted me to a place called Devi Higher Secondary School, where I had a very good teacher. His name was Pandit Shambhunath Kachru. He happened to be also one of the leaders in Kashmir Pandit agitation. This teacher of us, I remember him like as if he's in my front. He made me, I don't know about other students, but I became very bold, and I became very, like I would express myself freely because of him. He made us so bold and so expressive. In fact, I'll let you know one of the things that happened. One day we all went to the school as usual. He was teaching us English. So I all of us were showing him. We had to write a letter in which we had to write to our principal for a few days leave of absence. For this, we had to write a letter, write an application. So he saw one or two of them, and he found, sir, respected sir, since my father is falling ill or my mother is ill, and therefore I want leave for 2 days. Yours obedient servant and all that, whatever it is, a usual type of a thing. So though after having read two or three, he literally flung that notebooks onto our faces and said, "Oh, come on, yeah, can't you write something better?" So we were surprised. What do we write? He said, write simple. That my father has decided. Firstly, you don't have to write. I want to. Beg to state, sir. Don't write all this. Just start the letter as it is, straight. Say, my father has decided to go for a picnic to Pahalgam tomorrow, and I want to avail of this opportunity to be to Pahalgam with my family. For 2 days, I will not be able to come to the school, sir.
Yeah.
Therefore, I want to be on leave, have my leave of absence. Yours faithfully. No, nothing to yours most obedient. No, nothing. We are not servants. We are not, the colonial time is gone. We are not. We used to be servants of a British. We are not servants today. So just write yours, your faithfully and the letter. And imagine such things. They went deep into as an impression on my mind. And ever since, I can you imagine till date, I have never written, never ever written yours obediently or all these salutations. I have never used even one of them.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. And then you went to
And
college. Yes. Then the college
then,
times. And
yes, thereafter we went to the college. College was SP College. In fact, I was one of the students who was trying to get into the pre-medical. During the DAV school, we had one visiting lecturer, Professor S.L. Raina, who used to come to teach. He used to often tell me that you are too young to be in this class of 11th. Possibly my age was very, because I was 50 born, and in 11th I was only 11 years old. So 50, 61 and no, sorry, 64. That means 14 years I was old. 14 years I was old, and he used to tell me, listen, you are too young. You are not behaving maturely. But I never thought that. My father was very keen that the children should, get into the school quickly and finish their no, this education quickly. But I was 15 years, 1965, when I finished 11th and tried to join medical college. But I just missed with a whisker. Some 10 marks remained between the last candidate who joined and myself. But I still remember many of our students who had joined SP College for this, as you call it, first TDC. They went for a writ to the court, and they got through admissions, and they were given in the second session. But my father, he was not in a situation that time to pay for 500 rupees, and I could go to the court and all that. I told him, listen, forget about it. I will do my BSc. There are मतलब जिंदगी में रास्ते बहुत भी हैं, और सितारों से आगे जहां भी और भी है, as you yourself said. So I told him, I said, I'm not going to go for any rate. I will study as it is. And then I continued in SP College. There I did from first TDC, second TDC, third TDC. I was one who also opted for BSc honors. Besides doing my BSc, I also took honors as a additional subjects, and in that we were 8 students. One of them, two of us got through. One was Vijay Ban. He went to Saint Patrice Lumumba University or something like in Russia. So he joined medicine later on, and I was the only one who got through with the BSc honors. While botany, chemistry, and physics and English were our subjects that time. But by BSc, in BSc, I think I had left physics. It was only botany, zoology, chemistry, and English.
oh, that's so great. And your family, you had your siblings and your functions and festivals. How did you
Oh yeah,
celebrate?
we used to celebrate. My father was firstly. I had a great tradition. My Nanaji, he was one of the great Kashmiri Pandit. He was the president of Chakrishwar Temple, Mr. Neelkant Nehru, if you ever heard of him. He had managed the temple you see in Chakrishwar, that white temple that has been built of late. That was his doing. While he was the president, it was built during his time. And so you can imagine from my maternal side, there was a lot of. He was supposed to be a good astrologer also. He would, I mean, I don't know. He used to say that he had predicted the death of his own daughter at the age of 40. And I used to rebut him. I used to say, if you knew that your daughter is going to die at 40, why did you marry her? Why did you make us orphans? Because my mother was died at the age of 40. I said, why did you marry her? That is the way I used to confront my elders. And then I had another side. We had Pandit Shamlal Saraf. He was my pufa. He was my father's brother-in-law on the positive side. He was a minister for in Kashmir for several. He was a freedom fighter. He fought alongside of Sheikh Abdullah, and thereafter he became minister for almost 15 years, and thereafter he was MP in Lok Sabha for 5 years. He was a great influence on my life. In fact, I can tell you, whatever I achieved in life, it is all because of direct and indirect influence from him. He was a Gandhian. He was a true Gandhian. I have never seen a person living so simply and so well like him. And can you imagine? Tell you, when I went to him for my medical seat, as I told you, I just missed by 10 marks. He was that time he was a member parliament. I went to him. He was sitting on the floor. He was, I don't know whether he was praying or something, but he was sitting on the floor. He was facing towards the wall. I sat on the sofa and I told him I have come for a request. He said, yes, what do you want? I said, I have done my pre-medical and I want a medical seat. He said, how many marks did you have? I said, "Yeah, what is the division you have got? I said, I have got second division. Oh, second division. Had you got a first division, I would have tried to help you. I was very blunt a man. I said, if I had a first division, why the hell should I have come to you? I would have got it on my own. I have come to you only for because I have second division. He said, he looked at me. He said, that would have been better if you had not come to me. This was the curtness of his. And then I told him, I said, I was young and I got little, my blood boiled, and I told him, had I been a Muslim, you would have got me a seat in my home. But since I am a Kashmiri Pandit, you are telling me this answer. That enraged him. Can you believe? This fellow, told me, he said, listen, you have said it for once. You will never repeat such things before me.
That's
For
how I did.
Kashmir, he said for Kashmiri Muslims, because of political disassociation, their India lies from only Kazigund to Uri. For a Kashmiri Pandit, India lies from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. For them, they're not feeling part of India because of political indoctrination that many
By the
political leaders
politician.
have been doing.
Politician. Yeah.
So don't ever tell me like this. I did realize this later on in my life, but that time I did not take it so easily. But later on in my life, I did find Kashmiri Muslims not being able to mix up. Now they are mixing up
No, they
very
are everywhere
thoroughly.
in the world. They are.
But those days, I mean, I have seen people coming back from BDS. I had two students who had come back from BDS and joined BSc because they thought ki, so we are going to some Hindu area and we are
No,
and it's so hot.
ignorance, ignorance.
Yeah, it was not. They didn't. Plus the heat they could not bear.
Innocent. They were innocent people, just injected, indoctrinated, as you
Plus,
rightly said.
plus the heat they could not bear. Plus the indoctrination done by politicians over from 53 onwards, it had created havoc there. Among
Yes.
Muslim students, it created havoc there. But that is
Uh,
how. The second thing I would like to tell you is he was, as I told you, he was a Gandhian, and he made me study Gandhiji lots. I have studied Gandhi books lots, and in fact, I still practice Gandhism to a lot extent, though I differ with Gandhi in many
Okay.
aspects. In my Gandhiji's aparigraha, that is non-possession, and Gandhiji's that you don't possess anything, nothing is yours. Gandhiji's concept of economic trusteeship and Gandhiji's concept of like being simple, living simply. This caught on to me. Now I don't know those who know me very well. I my expenses are very small, very limited, and I don't use anything foreign. I have always abhorred wearing foreign things. Though at my home, my wife extra used to get foreign things from Dubai and all that because her relations used to be in Dubai and all that. But I was forced sometimes to see TV or something which was a foreign thing. I otherwise abhorred all the foreign things. I never use foreign things till date. I'm still holding. I wear even today. I relish to wear khadi kurta and a pajama and
That's
enjoy
wonderful.
myself here.
That's wonderful.
That
That's wonderful to know that you have
that
some
was his.
principles. You have some
That was
principles that you maintain those. I would like
yes.
to say one thing before we close this first segment. This is one of the most interesting segment. I would like to ask one more thing. Did you go to? I mean, people used to go to this Donga cruise. How did you celebrate tradition?
Oh,
Just a brief
yes.
segment. Yeah, you can over.
Not as friends. In fact, in MSc, I did get an invitation from one. If you have heard about one Abdul Rashid Shaheen, he was a politician. He
Yes, yes.
was he did his MSc zoology, and he wanted me to join politics. So he told me, "Why don't you join my political party?" I said, "I don't mind." He had a Kashmiri Pandit with him. He had brown hair. I don't know what was his name. I don't remember. So I told him I have no objection in joining. He said, "Okay, then give him 100 rupees. We will go for a cruise." I said, what do we do? He said, we are going to have some liquor there. I said, damn, for your liquor, I'm not going to join your party. I'm not for that. Politics is politics, liquor is liquor. And as I told you, I was not very well with liquor. But what once we had a cruise, we had I had my Pufi's no her in-laws. She was a widow. She was a child widow, but she had managed her in-laws very well all through her life. So they carried us to Tulmula in a boat. We went in a boat and went up to Tulmula. And can you imagine? They were living at Naidiyar, I think, a place called in Varanavari. From their almost their door, we started in that boat. And can you imagine? There were 50 people in the joint house. Their joint
Oh,
house, they at that point even they had 50 people in their house, their sisters, their brothers, and their children, and all that. Oh God, all those 50 were being carried by that boat. And we went. Man, my Puffy, she told my mother. My mother was little because I was only son of her. She was very wary of me. So she told her, "Don't worry, I will look after him very well. I'm going to carry him." Somehow she carried. And imagine when we came back near Sumbal, that that Sangam,
yeah.
that rivers may meet.
Confluence, confluence.
There was a flood, and flood was to such an extent that the what do you call oarsmen, they just put their hands up, and they were simply saying, we whether we will be able to save ourselves or not, we are not sure. And imagine that Puffy, my father's sister, she really did not know what to do. She was not worried about 50 people. She was only worried about me. What do I do with this man if something happens? But somehow then that things abated, and we reached back to our this
That's so
house.
wonderful.
That
That's called, there are beautiful stories on Kashmir, but then we have the time constraints.
yeah.
We can talk about other things like about Shivratri celebrations, other things as well. But you have talked a bit of about it in your first segment. first 10, 15 minutes. First of all, I would like to say before we amble into the main thrust area, main subject of today's show, I would like you to tell us something about yourself. You have been, you have worked on a very distinguished positions. You were the chief postmaster general, and you have worked in all over the length and breadth of the country. You have even visited Cairo and other places. I don't know whether it was an official visit or not. And you have traveled across these departments, great number of departments, and even in the army, you said that you have written in your biodata that you served as a lieutenant colonel there, because there was designation was lieutenant colonel. And then your whole reformist attitude, wherever you went, you did something great, some change, some revolutionary change into the system, improved it for the future. Tell us something about yourself, your career, a brief
See,
introduction.
yes, education, I have told you already. Now, when I joined, I was looking for a job, and my father really didn't know. I was teaching somebody, children. He got me into Kashmiri Emporium, where my father was already working. He's managing director. He told me, "Why don't you apply for a job?" So somehow, cutting it short, I got a job as assistant manager in the Kashmir Emporium, and my first posting was in Chandigarh. But can you imagine, the pay was 140 rupees basic, and 250 rupees was the take home pay, and I really didn't know what to do. And one day, my professor A.K. Koul and his research scholar, he came. And he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm managing this emporium." He says, "Is this for what you had learned botany?" I said, "Yaar, kya kare? That is what luck is." Somehow I managed for a few years, but I got frustrated. To be very frank, I got so much frustrated that I tried to get job into the education department in Delhi, and I got it. In Delhi, I got a very good job as a PGT in Delhi.
Very
But
good.
I don't know, in 1971, I am talking about 1971. My father, I don't know what was in his mind. He always thought Kashmiri, yes, these teachers to be like, as if you go from door to door and do puja and you take my money. He had a funny concept about a teacher, and he always thought a teacher is a miserly person.
He's
He
dying with
he
penury. He's with the penury.
no, he's a miserly person. He doesn't spend anything. His
He had his
clothes
own
are
view
like,
of standing a teacher.
yeah. So told him, I said, listen, let me go to I am getting such a good job. Let me go. And perhaps my concept was I would have been a very high in education department if I had continued there.
It's a beautiful
But
profession.
he somehow didn't allow. He did not say no. He never had no that direct attitude. He had never said no. I had my Mamaji. Here his name was Shambhunath Nehru. He unfortunately died before he became director. He was almost to become director of education in Delhi, but he died beforehand. He went to Srinagar after 20 years of life. He went to Srinagar. He met my father. He talked to him because I told my Mahaji, I said, listen, this is what I am getting. He said, it is great. I said, my Papa is not saying no, yes or no to it. He said, okay, I'll check up. I'm going to Srinagar. So Srinagar jaake, he said, he came back and he said, listen, your father, it seems to me that he doesn't want you. He has some apathy against this teaching, and he doesn't want you. On the other hand, I had another teaching assignment in Khalsa school. Can
Okay.
you imagine? They were so impressed with my interview that they had near this Amar colony, जहाँ पे Kashmiri पंडितों का we have that headquarters, Amar colony,
In Delhi.
in Delhi.
Okay.
Yeah, it nearby there is some Khalsa institution. I appeared for interview there, and they were so impressed that they got me samosas and tea. They said, "Come on, sit with us." They told me, "You wait outside," and after finishing with others, they came. They called me again. They said, "Sit. We are going to give you a job, and you sit with us." But as I told you, my father was not interested, so I had to give it up. Ultimately, I didn't know. I resigned from the department. I mean, there were many things that
You,
happened.
you did your civil services examination. Yes,
That is what I'm.
yeah,
It was
yeah, but
it was after two resignations. I had twice resigned from the same organization. I had a tiff with my managing director. I told him, "Hell with this department. I'm not going to be here." Somehow managed it, but he was nice enough. He gave me the job back, and I was even promoted as a full manager, as a statistical and review officer, or they used to call it as a planning officer. So, 1975. I thought of appearing in the civil services. And that too, it happened because in Delhi, while I was in Kashmir Emporium, they told us you learn some foreign language because we are intent to open some foreign branches for Kashmir Emporium. I started learning Spanish. Learned it in the place called Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. There, I saw two IFS officers who were also learning. I got better marks than them.
okay,
Once I got better marks, I don't know. I felt got a feeling that if I can get better marks than these people in here, why not in the what you call normal course? I asked their guidance and appeared for the examination. That year, I did not study anywhere. I did not go to any place. I got marks somewhere near 51, 52% marks. And somebody told me, you should have got a call. He said, you should have got a call. I said, yeah, I didn't get one. He said, you appear, this is the thing you are going to get. Then next year, I again appeared, but I did some schooling at Asandas Gupta College. And thereafter, I got this in 1975 exams. I got this. And in 76, I was allotted to Indian Postal Services because in IS and IFS proper, in both IS and IFS, I could not qualify for the final list. But in allied services, I was fifth in the list, and
okay,
I could have got into customs or Indian what you call audit service and other things. But since I had no guidance, I had put the way it was written there in the form. I had put the same way because I was not interested. I was only interested in IS and other things. I had written Indian Postal Service as a number one. I tried my best to change it, but they did not allow in the academy. But what happened was very important is that since they did not change it, I was ultimately very comfortable in the service because it was an honest service. It was a very honest service, so I did not have to indulge into anything untoward. And secondly, I had that feeling for uniform that I wanted to join police service. That was done by the joining in the Army Postal Service because you from Indian Postal Services you go on deputation to Army Postal Services at any time you feel like. So I went to when I was in the second year of my service, I went to Army Postal Service, joined as a captain, became a major, and then became a lieutenant colonel. And because of my father's death, I had to come back. My juniors came back very late, and they became major generals. Somehow, I missed that bus.
anyway, that's so wonderful. I mean, that's a great career, and you did wonderful things around. You were a reformist also, but that's a very, let's not expand it very further. Uh, I think we certainly need to now come up to the today's main chapter, the
Yes.
history. Before that, I would like to ask one thing. There was a lot of disturbance in 1990. Our, the Kashmiris. I mean, they were all uprooted from Kashmir, and then it was a bloody hurricane time, and I mean, like in Holocaust, everything was so disturbed, and they were penniless, and children were on the roads. I have heard that you as a, I mean, person
I,
at the
I
helm.
was a I was a director of postal services in 1988 when I came back from the army. I joined as a director of postal services in Srinagar, and
Okay,
89 when the whole thing started. I was there very much. My chief PMG that time used to be called only a PMG. He had a low blood sugar, so he had to leave. Also, I was left alone there. Can you imagine? all the Kashmiri Pandits, they left Valley and reached Jammu. And poor fellows, they went to stayed in these tents and other things. I really didn't know how to react. I was mentally I was shocked. What to do? How do I help? Somehow I was able to manage. I was the first officer of that shifted his office, not shifted, I would say adjusted Kashmiri Pandits in Jammu. I was the first officer. I got approval from Delhi to get half of the office of Circle Office shifted to Jammu and get all the Kashmiri Pandits adjusted there.
Delhi.
But one great thing happened that Kashmiri Pandit employees that we had, they all cooperated with me. They sat even the corridors. They did not ask for big things. They sat for in the corridors and worked, and we worked all together. And thereafter, after seeing me, after I have shifted I adjusted other people from other post offices in different post offices. I also adjusted not only regular employees but non-regular employees. Earlier, we used to call them as the extra departmental employees. Later, we have started calling them as Gram Dak Sevaks. Now, they were not really regular employees. Those also I got adjusted in Jammu. Besides this, this was one part of it. Secondly, I came to know that poor Kashmiri Pandits who have fled Kashmir, they are moneyless. They don't have anything, and they are thronging post offices. They are thronging banks. Banks were closed. Banks were totally closed. They could not have any access to the money. So what I did is I concentrated in my office. I made a cell. In that cell, I kept my people on whom I believed. I knew that they are not going to be corrupted and all that. I kept very hardworking 2 or 3 people. Especially one of them was one Mr. Bindru. I kept it, and I kept 4 or 5 of them, and I got all the postal, this account transferred. I got all the pension papers transferred within no time. And not only that, then there was one problem that happened. Somebody told me that the Kashmiri Pandits, they have having marriages and all that, they have no money. Now they have got fixed deposits. What do they do? I got special permission from Delhi, and poor fellow, he died. His name was Dr. Mr. Raghulalal, late Mr. Raghulalal. I told him, I said, this is what the situation is. You have to help us. He said, what do I do? I said, you get a permit. He said, who will check whether it is genuine or not? I said, you don't worry. I am going to take the risk. I'll see the genuineness myself. Can you imagine a bureaucrat taking risk that I will do it? I said, no, I am going to do it myself. And the only thing, something, at times destiny helps. I told him only up to 20,000 rupees. We will not give more. Let the people come up to 20,000 rupees. We will help them. And we started giving fixed deposit. That means this national savings certificates and KVPs and other things. Up to 20,000 rupees, I used to give them without verification.
That's so wonderful.
That's how it worked.
I mean, that's a great thing. You helped to people who were in distress at one point of time, your own Kashmiri brethren. Anyway, let's amble crisscross further. And I will again like to just put, because in Urdu, we are talking about the Urdu literature. I don't know, today I feel like speaking about the more of these couplets. Hazaron bark gire, lakh aandiyan uthe. Hazaron bark gire, lakh aandiyan uthe.
lakh aandiyan uthe.
वो फूल खिल के रहेगा जो खिलने वाला है. So I can say it about you, I can submit it to you. So finally you came and you did what you wanted, and you did it very well. Now let's go into this beautiful, the basin of the literature after post-partition literature in India. I mean, we had the great exponents of post-partition literature, as we have already explained, Saadat Hasan Manto se leke, we have Sahir Ludhianvi and Ismat Chugtai, to Munshi Premchand, to Krishan Chandra, all the great people. I remember Sahir is my favorite. I don't know. मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ, पल दो पल मेरी कहानी है, पल दो पल मेरी हस्ती है, पल दो पल मेरी जवानी है.
He was a
wonderful,
great poet. शहनशाह
ने दौलत का सहारा
बनवा
मोहब्बत का उड़ाया है मजाक.
उड़ाया है मजाक. That was
Great,
Taj Mahal.
such was a great point about the Taj Mahal he speaks.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
so I mean, the Sahir is light. Sahir touches, bounces your heart.
Even he
Very
wrote
very
a even he wrote a poem which Nehru didn't like. That was Pyasa. The
जिन्हें है
Pyasa
नाज
movie is
हिलते
there.
वो
Na?
कहाँ है, जिन्हें है नाज हिलते वो कहाँ
Actually, that was against Iqbal. He said that those people who talk about the Orientalism, where are they? Let them see the facts. It was basically that
है.
poem
Address to
when
Iqbal.
it was addressed to Iqbal that शायर मशरक बता कहाँ है वो. But
शायद
ultimately,
मशरक को
when it
शायद
came to the
मशरक को
film,
ठिकाना ही बदल दिया.
when he came to the film, it became which was Daru didn't somehow like.
Yeah, it was about those brothels and everything. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
it was a
proper.
great film. You know, Gurudat was a genius filmmaker.
Oh, he
So,
was a class.
but I am a bit of romanticized my person. तो मुझे थोड़ा सा अच्छा लगता है romantic situation हो. But first of all, tell me, I know about one particular thing that you have a very very great liking for Shahadat Hasan Manto. Sadhu Hasan Manto, we have, I mean, done his plays. I was in theatre. I reviewed his plays. I'm a theatre critic as well. But let's begin this whole post-partition
Okay,
journey
okay.
to literature through your one of the most favorite.
Before I start, I hope you have seen Sadat Hasan Manto's Jeb Putra.
Uh,
It was done by Bombay TV also. खैर that aside, actually Urdu अफसाना जिसको कहते हैं, Urdu short story. It started somewhere in 1901. It was
right.
started by Munshi Premchand. Before that, there were some writers. Some writings are supposed to be like short story, but what short story was in English literature, that particular format was only introduced by Munshi Premchand. And Munshi Premchand is supposed to be the father of Urdu fiction, Urdu short story in India,
Certain,
in
certain.
Urdu, in Urdu. We had many of these writers, like Munshi Premchand was there, Pandit Sudarshan was there, Upendranath Ashk was there. Their wives were there. Even their wives were writing. Kaushalya Devi. Then their sister of Krishan Chandra was Sarla Devi. Then we had a second rung of writers, that was Rajendra Singh Bedi, Krishan Chandra,
Rajendra Singh,
Ismat
Krishan Chandra,
Chugtai.
yeah. Ismat Chugtai.
Yes, Ismat
Ismat Chugtai,
Chugtai and
I have read Ismat Chugtai also a bit. Yeah.
oh, she was class. Then Saadat.
Lihaf is still in my mind.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. That was
Almost
that was the
completely
first that was the first story written on lesbianism. It was
lesbianism.
on lesbianism, and can you imagine? It was what boldness she had to write that story at that point of time, and still Mantu would not rate her to be that bold as the people thought. But they were very close. I mean, I would not say they were very good, friendly people, but no,
Yeah, they went to
nothing.
the trials. They went to the trials in the courts together. Yeah,
Saad, yes, only one case, in only one case. Sadat Hasan Mantu had 5 cases. Surprising part is that all the cases were instituted against him in Lahore and Karachi, while he wrote in Bombay and other places. Now, this is the shocking part, how a conservative society worked against the good writers of Urdu. They were proceeded against by writers, by others who were anti them in Lahore and Karachi. But they kept writing in Bombay. And I think Mantu had done a great disservice to himself by having shifted from Bombay to
yes,
Lahore
that was
ultimately.
his biggest
That was his biggest mistake. Though there are many interpretations, I wouldn't like to go into all that right now.
mistake.
But Mantu was my favorite is because you may not be knowing that I started learning Urdu basically while I was in MSc in post graduation. That is when I started learning actually Urdu. And that time I went to a school called as Oriental School in MP school near Gandhi College. There I used to study in the evening, and I did my Adib and Adib Mahir of Jamia Urdu Aligarh.
Oh,
That is how I did my learned Urdu. And then in 1971 I started writing. my first short story came in 1970. That was Salma. I really didn't know what to put a title on the story. At the gate of the newspaper, I just put the name of the heroine on it and gave it to Hamdard. And Hamdard published it in two installments, on one Sunday and second Saturday. And once you, can you imagine the time you see the your own writing in the for the first time,
You
you
get
are
very much
oh,
exhilaration.
you get
Exhilaration.
so.
You are talking about
Second,
multinational.
that is what I'm shifting.
Yeah.
What happened during those days? You may be knowing Premi Romani. His father was Dr. Bridge
Yeah.
Premi.
Yeah.
Dr. Bridge Premi happened to be have written Sadat Hasan Mantu's thesis, and this thesis was in his Almira. Somehow, his Premi Romani came to know that I have got a good hand calligraphy I can do. So he requested me, and we used to sit up to 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the night at the home, because they were very close to us. So there I wrote that thesis of Sadat and Mantu, and that got me the feel of Mantu. And thereafter I started studying Mantu. And I may not say that I have. He has written around 300 stories, and I can say that I must have read at least 150 of them, 200 of them, and I know some of his stories by heart, and they have impressed me so much. His
Toba takes.
story, Toba taxing his class. I mean, that I don't suppose even any other literature would have ever produced one. Then we have Kholdo. Then we have got Babu Gopinath. Then we have got Thanda Ghost. Then we have got
Nanda Ghosh is also, yeah.
Hatak. Hatak.
He was very
Hatak is a
honest.
very good.
Very
He was
honest.
class. He was class. That
Class
he
है बाप.
was class.
वो अलग दुनिया का था.
Wo-
Different.
in that is what I'm saying. This was a as I said, there were two different streams that came in 1900. That was one was Sajjad Haider. That
Yeah.
was Qurratul Ain Haider's father. He started a romantic school. It was more of a mystic school. No, more of जिसमें परियां आती हैं वगैरह वगैरह आती हैं, romantic. It was more of a romantic. And yes, and it was one trend, and the other trend was Munshi Premchand's Hakikat Pasand school. That was the realistic school. The realistic school. Eidgah, that was class. His बड़े घर की बेटी, बड़े घर की बेटी. In Kafan was the ultimate. That I am coming to later. Kafan was a later. His stories were initially he started with Hubul Watani. That means patriotism, and he wrote about Rajasthani princesses who gave their lives for against for their country. He wrote about them, and then he also wrote about people who he would sacrifice their lives for their country. That is how they started. But that time he was writing as a Nawab Rai, not as a Premchand. Premchand, the name was given to him by the Zamana editor. Is he suggested to him, why don't you write as a Premchand? Because as Nawab Rai, his book
He was
was
master novelist. He was a master novelist.
novels. His novels nobody could compare. Just nobody could
Godan,
compare. He was
Nirmala,
class. Godan was the best. A critic has written about Godan. That is the first time Premchand has come to ground earth. Otherwise, he'll flies in the air. Is a fact. He was too idealistic because he was a Gandhian. He was an idealistic person. So he always thought his novels or his short stories said what should be, what ought to be. But it was only in Kafan that it was what is, and it was only in Godan what is. It was not what ought to be, and that is where the difference lies. Where Premchand came down to. After that, we had in 1932 we had what you call we had Sajjad Ali Zahir and his we got a book written by them, Angare. That changed the whole situation, and thereafter the progressive movement started in India. That is the where the you have these names as Sahir Ludhianvi, as this Kafi Azmi, Sardar Jafri, and then we
Ahmed
have
Faraz. Ahmed Faraz. Ahmed Faraz
Ahmed
is
Faraz was a later. He
slightly
was
later.
later.
What a great
Faz Ahmed
that's a great
And then we had this,
Krishan Chandra. Krishan Chandra.
Krishan Chandra. Then Krishan Chandra was one of the best of them. Ismat Chugtai, Rajinder
Ismat
Singh
Chugtai.
Bedi. They,
Rajinder Singh Bedi.
uh, Ismat Chugtai, Rajinder Singh Bedi, and Mantu also joined them. But Mantu, when he started writing about sex and other things, they could not digest it. So they जिसको कहते हैं उर्दू में टाट बाहर कर देना, they threw him out of their company,
They
but
thought
they
Ismat
retained they retained Ismat Chugtai. You see, ultimately they found Mantu to be a threat to them. Ismat Chugtai had also written Lehaf, but they did not throw her out
But
because she was not a
Manto was a direct. Manto's writing the narrative was more direct, and it hurt the sensibilities of a class who thought
it
that this
was.
is the way. Yeah,
You see, at that point of time, we had influence that is called as Freudian influence. During that
right.
very time, Freudian
Yeah,
books,
right
it
was
had started, it had come into literature. We had books like Lady Chatterley's Lover and other things.
Richard is
So
lover.
they had, yes, these books had come available in India, and they were also Indian writers were also trying to emulate them. And I think Mantu was one who really started writing with all his heart in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
After that, we reached. There are many people who emulated Mantu, tried to write this. The three streams went on. There was one stream that was with BC Sadi, that was the romantic. The second one was the what you call Hakikat Pasand, and the third was what you call as the Taraki Pasand or the progressive. But
Progressive. Yeah,
but by 1950s there was a 1960s, the whole thing became too much politicized. The most of these writers started writing as if they were writing Marx, propaganda.
yeah. They
It
became
became
a
a Marxist
propagandists. They became victim of their
propagandist.
own image.
Exactly. And
Caricature.
the others
Caricature.
others see they retracted. So when this thing happened, somehow they were the other group that came up was against them, was called as a modernist thought.
Modernism.
Those I personally can say Gopal Mittal was one of them. I personally feel they were funded by capitalist lobby that time to counter this communist lobby.
Progressive.
So in this, there were two main people. That was Wazir Aga from Pakistan and Shamasur Rahman Faruqi from India. These two people started leading this modernist lobby. Shamasur Rahman Faruqi started with a magazine in the name of his wife, called as Jamila Faruqi. It was called as Shab Khoon. Now, incidentally, Shamsur Rahman Faruqi happened to be a postal service officer. He was my boss, and he was a. But one thing I can tell you, it was treat to talk to him. It was treat to know his knowledge. Matlab, I had till then I had a feeling all these modernists, they were those who could not write good ghazals, who could not set meters, and who could not set this
Time.
because they could not rhyme and rhythm. They didn't
They
know.
wrote the
So
free
what they
verse.
did, they wanted to write free verse. But when I met Faruqi Saab, I found it was totally reverse. This man had already crossed the river, had crossed this ocean, and he was on the other side, and he was trying to look at what next. And that is what I found in Faruqi Saab. He
This
was
vision.
trying to find what next, but he was not in tune with his own people in India. You see, what is important is Urdu literatures. While he had already crossed the river, but there were people who were still on this side of the river. They were not ready to accept him. Even today, if you buy without writing somebody Premchand's name or somebody's name, if you put the letter today, even that short story on the magazine, people will still like it because we have not been able to find solutions to roti, kabda, and makan. Therefore, it is only after roti, kabda, and makan problems are over that you can talk about modernism. So modernism became an ornamental thing. It was more आप मेरे को हाजी बेगोयम मन तो हाजी बेगोयम. It is like that. You call me a great man, I call you a great man. That was a done. That is what modernists did.
I give
But
award to you, you give award to me. Yeah.
exactly by 1980. By 1970-80, this jadid, it is called in Urdu as jadidiyat pasandi. This jadidiyat pasand, this modernism thought was finished. Yes, this was finished, and this was taken over. Again, you will find it has its alternatives in Western literature. There, modernism had finished, then postmodernism came. So in India, it was the postmodernism which was called as Mabad Jadidiyat. But to be very frank, not much of a difference between all this. Today, if you see a Mabad Jadidiyat writer writing, he writes as good in the same way as Tarki Pasand.
I personally believe, as a critic also, I feel that, I may be criticizing Iqbal for his change of Tarana and going into the other, I mean, limiting his philosophy to a country which is so hierarchically very different. But I feel somewhere down the line, existentialism, what is an Indian existentialism, and what was the Jainpal Sarte's existentialism, they are entirely, because they dry up. They don't have the spirit. Ultimately, at one point of time, decay begins. So despite going to higher realms, it decays and comes back and falls down. Why is here? Because the spirit is alive. कहीं ए हकीकत मुंतजर नजरा लिबास मजाज में कि हजारों सजदे. अब you see here the spirit is alive, and you see to Jainpal Sarte, sees place, you will find other hell, others hell, because they are blind, because they lose the basic disconnect, which is the Indian ethos or the Oriental ethos. That is the spirit. That's what my perception is.
You see, that's right. But the basic question is, you have to see is वजूदियत जिसको कहते हैं, existentialism जिसको कहते हैं. It is nothing new to India. You find it. You find it in our Panchtantras. You find it in our Upanishads. You find it in our old literature. Buddhism was.
कहाँ से लिया? इकबाल के अंदर कहाँ से आया? वहीं से तो आया है. It is the origin.
No. I won't say इकबाल ने कहाँ से लाया, because
what I mean to say is that genetically, as I was talking about the roots, somewhere down the line these things travel. They do. He was always saying that I am a Brahman, Kashmiri, but that is a fact. But the other thing is, when he went to Germany, he did study comparative religions. He did lot of comparative religion study. And while he did philosophy study, what happened is, he is more called as a philosophical poet rather than poet philosopher. His first basis is no doubt.
When he started, you see, there is something called as achievement therapy.
Yes.
When you achieve something, you see, if somebody started calling me, you are honest, then I tend to be more and more honest. I ensure that I don't do anything that anybody could view that is not. Same thing happened with Iqbal. Iqbal, when he started writing about Islam, initially he criticized Islam by writing shikwa. But when he got a very bad reaction to that, then he wrote Jawab Shikwa in order to firstly calm them down, and secondly telling them that this is what my concept of God is, and this is what is the concept of my philosophy. So he and in that, you see, even in Iqbal's poetry, in this, you find many things which are not somewhere even in Islamic literature. These are they are basically now concept of khudi. Whatever Muslims may say, जिसको आत्मा का परम नहीं, basically in Hinduism we say Atma, and to make it meet Paramatma. We don't say Paramatma to meet Atma, right?
No.
Now we grow Atma to become Paramatma. खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना
खुदा
कि
के
हर
फजल
तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे
बता तेरी
बता
रजा
तेरी
क्या।
रजा क्या. The Paramatma will ask you, why have you come to me? What is your feeling? So all these things got mixed up, and he gave a new concept to Islam in his poetry.
That is interiorization. Interiorization ultimately, what is the basic concept of.
Exactly, exactly, yes.
Anyway, let's move ahead. You are talking about मुझे एक शेर याद आ गया, मैं फिर बोलता हूँ, आज मैं शेर बहुत बोल रहा हूँ.
That's good.
बंदगी हमने छोड़ दी. अहमद फराज is my favorite. I really love him after
Oh,
Sahil.
good. Yes,
बंदगी
he is, he is.
बंदगी बंदगी हमने छोड़ दी है फराज. बंदगी हमने छोड़
हमने
दी है
छोड़
फराज.
दिया है फरियाद.
फराज क्या करें लोग जब खुदा हो जाए. क्या
क्या
करें
करें
लोग
जब
जब खुदा
लोग
हो जाए.
जब
Everybody has
खुदा हो
become a
जाए.
खुदा. So बंदगी में किसको
Everybody has become a god. Now, when everybody becomes a god, you don't know whom to worship then. Yeah, that's a fact of life. That's a fact of life.
And now let's move on to other people and other segments of this, evolution, the journey of literature. Drama, you talked about a bit about the short
Now,
stories
you talked about drama. Let me tell you,
in the
when the
Sabha.
drama, yeah, when the drama in the Sabha was started, the person behind the whole thing was Imtiaz Ali Taj. He wrote ultimately a drama called Anarkali, which is even today regarded one of the best dramas written in Urdu literature. After that, as you said yourself said that the Parsis
Parsi,
came
it was
forth,
an
and
amalgamation because they were the
yes,
business people. They
but
wanted
you
to.
will be surprised. There was a Kashmiri gentleman who was behind the whole thing, and his
Aga
name
Hasim
was Aga
Kashmiri.
Hashar Kashmiri.
Aga Hasim
Aga
Kashmiri,
Hashar Kashmiri.
I'm a theatre
Aga
teacher.
Hashar Kashmiri has written. Firstly, he has translated many of the
From the same
Shakespeare
school.
stories.
Same school. Same
Yes,
school.
he has written many Shakespeare's dramas he has translated. Plus, he has written own original dramas which are very well appreciated even today.
They
He was
were.
a class.
They were. His plays used
And
to run for
but
6 hours,
but
7 hours.
one thing that happened, to Urdu drama was it could not flourish. Reason was Muslims don't allow depiction of any of their prophets etc in the dramas.
Okay.
Therefore, it remained restricted. It became dramas got their flip only when it came to Tarki Pasand Tariq, that is progressivism.
Progressive movement.
When it came to Nukkats, then they started showing people. Then they started showing the common people. There was no depiction of gods and other things. There was, so that is the time when we have that Safdar Hashmi.
Safdar Hashmi was very latest phenomenon.
Then we had Habib, one
Habib Tanvir,
Doctor
वो
Habib,
तो tribals पे
Habib
करते थे
Tan.
ना, tribals.
Those people were started this movement,
Mayam Panikar,
but
Habib Tanvir Karan.
Habib Tanvir's one of the dramas was against emergency. She had taken it from this Shahnama. He had taken the clue from Shahnama, and he wrote in emergency against Mrs. Gandhi, and it was one of the very important dramas he had written.
Anyway, let's move ahead, and I think we are just heading for closing of the time. Anything you want to close down this discussion on this Urdu literature post scenario here in India?
I would say this, that our Urdu literature is shrinking a bit, unfortunately, because of politicization. But in India, because Pakistan made it as a national language, therefore in India there was a reaction to it. Unfortunate that was, and a lot of polarization took place. But on the other side, I would say Kashmiri Pandits and Kaists, they were two important non-Muslim writers who contributed to Urdu literature.
You have written an
But
article. You have
after,
written a book.
but after, yeah, I have written a book, Urdu ke Ghair Muslim Afsana Nigar, which is 300 pages, 350 pages book written, showing from Premchand down to today. All the writers, Kashmiri Pandit and Kayas and others, in the Sikhs and Jains and others. But what I'm trying to say is, after Kashmiri Pandits have shifted from Srinagar to Jammu, Now there is this whole community is going, not a single Urdu writer will ever be produced now. So we have lost another source of Urdu.
Unfortunately, this language has been associated with religion. That was very bad. That is
Yes,
something very, very, very wrong
that
and
that
very.
happened. That happened unfortunately. Otherwise, imagine I have just 22 books to my credit, and eight, nine of them are afsana, collection of short stories. 10 of them are on critical essays and this book reviews, and one is autobiography. One is, as I told you, Urdu ke Gair Muslim Afsana Nigar. One I have written on Krishan Chandra's life. Krishan Chandra, there are many controversies they made about Krishan Chandra, which I have tried to clarify in that. So I have written almost 22 books till now. But as I say again and again, I say that I work it not for getting big name or something. I write
No,
it
so
for
your own
I
satisfaction.
just write it for satisfaction. I have never got any big recognition or something. But whatever I have got, I'm satisfied with it.
No, no, your literature is being read across in the subcontinent, and I found many reviews yesterday, many comments that they have read your books and people have read your stories. What was the main आपके अफसानों में? What was the main content of your अफसाना? Is there any particular pattern you follow, or it is just a
No, no,
disjoint?
no. My first thing is I write about society, जिसको in Urdu we call it as maqsadi adab, a literature that has some focus on society. Now, out of this, I have also written on psychology and especially about the sexual part of it, because that Mantu's story I have continued a little further and written on sexual psychology. Now, third thing I have written is Kashmir. Kashmir has been my mainstay of short stories, and I have written number of stories. I would say about 20, 30 of them on Kashmir, and some of them are really no appreciated by many great writers. One of my stories is Ek Nayate Makan Ka Rape. Can you imagine this story was appreciated by one of the famous Urdu critics. He said that I have never read such a short story, a story that is shown on scene deconstructing a story, and still you are constructed a story. I really give you a lot of appreciation, and my blessings are with you.
Really, that's so wonderful. And anything you would like to talk about your literary works? थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में बात करेंगे before we close it up.
As I told you, my I have got around 10 of my
You wrote around
books.
300 to 250 short stories, around 300 articles. Yeah.
About 300 articles, about 160 stories. The books written by me is अधूरे चेहरे, चिनार के पंजे, जेब्रा क्रॉसिंग पर खड़ा आदमी, रेजा रेजा हयात, रूह का कर्म, अब मैं वहां नहीं रहता, जड़ों की तलाश, पतों पर लिखी तहरीरें. Now, there are many stories which are in fashion nowadays. I have written two of them, Muthi Bar Ret and Ye Kaisa Rishta. After that, I have written one autobiography, Khud Navish, that is Lohe Hayat. Recently, one of my novels has come into market that is on Kashmir. I have mixed up the history of Kashmir along with the Kashmiri resilience, Kashmiri Pandits' resilience, how we made our future, how we fought against all the ills of our life.
Jackals and all.
This book I have called as Apna Apna Sach. That is the novel. This. Then I have some, as I told you, critical books written. Asri Tahreerein, Asri Shuur, Asri Taqaze, Asri तनाजर असरी नकूश अदबी मबाइसे जम्मू व कश्मीर का असरी अदब असरी जाविये असरी रुझानात असरी तख्लीकात. Then I have two research based books, that is उर्दू के गैर मुस्लिम अफसाना निगार and कृष्ण चंद्र मेरी नजर.
That's so wonderful, 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 great. I mean, these are the essays, wonderful essays, and then short stories. These two genres. And you have not gone into the poetry. Have you ever tried
No,
poetry?
no, 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 no. Now I do write some tukbandi, I do, but I don't feel I am there's nothing in me as a poet.
कौन रोता
But
है?
I do appreciate poetry. let me tell you, Begum Akhtar is one of my favorite.
My father's
Favorite. Yeah.
my
She
father's
is. Matlab,
yeah.
I just go ecstatic when I hear her. Listening
उसकी
to her
आवाज ही
music,
में वो आवाज में वो बात है ना।
it is class.
कौन रोता है किसी और के लिए ए दोस्त, सबको अपनी ही किसी बात पे रोना आया। With that, I would like to say that we had a very wonderful time with Deepak
Oh,
Budki ji. Thank you very much. You came, and we had a very, although brief discussion, because then there is a scope of the program. We can encapsulate only a particular portion. We cannot do the entire thing. And you have a great body of work, impressive body of work in Urdu literature. You came today, and certainly we discussed very, very interesting. It was a colloquial. People in the middle class and all the people could understand it. We have tried to make it very easy and very comfortable and very interesting and interactive and exhilarating and enriching. Thank you very much for coming. It was really a great pleasure that you visited us. Thanks a lot.
thank you, Jugal Saab. So nice
Good
of you.
luck.
Thank you.
Best of the wish. Best wishes.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Good night. So that was Deepak Budki ji, former chief, postmaster general, who was a bureaucrat of great eminence, but at the same time, his literature is very popular in the Southeast Asia. In the Indian subcontinent, and he has contributed a lot much to the Urdu story and prose and criticism. And I think his discussion was very interesting. We tried to interact in a very, very more simpler and lucid way. We didn't really like to go went into the verbose, but it was so. I think I loved it very much. I really enjoyed this discussion with him. So thank you very much. You came, but before I leave this program, 60-second illustrious historic show of Sheetalnath Conversation, I would like to just have a couplet from Premchand, Munshi Premchand. एक अजीब सी दौड़ है ये जिंदगी, एक अजीब सी दौड़ है ये जिंदगी, जीत जाओ तो अपने पीछे छूट जाते हैं। एक अजीब सी दौड़ है ये जिंदगी, कितना सिंपल लिखते थे ये लोग। एक अजीब सी दौड़ है ये जिंदगी, जीत जाओ तो कई अपने पीछे छूट जाते हैं, और हार जाओ तो अपने ही पीछे छोड़ देते हैं।
छोड़ दे. Beautiful.
बैठ जाता है मिट्टी पर अक्सर, बैठ जाता हूँ मिट्टी पर अक्सर, क्योंकि मुझे अपनी औकात अच्छी लगती है।
अच्छी
So
लग.
with that wonderful poetic marvel from Munshi Premchand, none other than Munshi Premchand, the great poet, literature, novelist of our times, I would like to say goodbye and good night. Have a wonderful time. We meet on next Sunday with wonderful, wonderful, great subject. It's a more controversial subject, but it's very romanticizing subject. We want to talk about R.C. Kak, ex-Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, by none other than his great celebrity grandson, Siddharth Kak. So it's going to be a very, very unstoppable show. Never miss it. Tell everyone to watch Sheetalnath Conversations. It will be a great, 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 great show. I promise you that. Thank you very much. Good night. Shabak hai. All the best. Love you. The Navy.